Good afternoon. There's been a surge in the number of violent crimes and auto thefts in York Region.
York Regional Police outlining their latest crime statistics today. CTV Sean Leathong is live at headquarters to bring us the details. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, I was speaking to York Regional Police Chief Jim MacSween a little while ago, and he was saying what these numbers point to is that Toronto is coming to York Region, specifically pointing to a 92% increase in the amount of gun crime since August of last year and 106% increase in carjacking since August of last year. But this is just 1 year they're pointing at. There's actually been a much more alarming trend in these types of increases. They say guns are coming across the border from the United States. They're finding their way to organized crime. Those organized crime groups are coming up from Toronto and performing their crimes. When asking about carjacking, the focus was the fact that he says there are some affluent areas in York Region and people are targeting cars in that area and then getting out and selling the cars, as we know. Their focus also being that they are going to work on putting together a unit that will focus on carjacking to try and bring those numbers down. Another interesting fact was that the number of actual car thefts, that being cars when people were not in the car, has actually gone down. So they said they're seeing this increase in the violent number of crimes, particularly using guns, particularly focusing on cars, and saying that it's largely due to organized crime. Here's Chief MacSween a little more on what these statistics say.
Since 2019, over a 5-year period, we've seen a 400% increase in carjackings, which are violent and traumatizing for victims and their families. Illegal handguns have become all too easy to access with limited consequences for criminals. And almost all of the guns being used in these crimes are illegal handguns, many of which are being smuggled across the border from the U.S. This surge in gun violence can be attributed to organized crime rings.
Now, when talking about organized crime, I asked the chief if he will be changing tactics because they do seem to be coming up. He says as far as boots on the ground investigations go, it does remain largely the same, but they have increased their numbers of partnerships, not only with other police forces, but actual automakers to see what they can do as far as stopping that. Now, he also pointed to the fact that many people that do participate in these gun crimes are people who are already out on bail for previous gun crimes, and he was calling for bail reform to keep these people behind bars. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. A man was taken to hospital in critical condition after an overnight shooting in North York that left 2 people wounded.
CP24's Beatrice Vaisman has the latest on the investigation and reaction from the community.
People that I've been talking to here this morning near Shepherd and Weston describe hearing different volleys of shots, about a dozen shots, and then a pause, and then more gunshots as they come out this morning and try to get an understanding as to what happened here in this plaza. 3 vehicles struck by gunfire. This white Acura RDX, one single bullet piercing the windshield. Just behind it, beside that police cruiser, gray Kia Soul, the driver's side window blown out, a single bullet hole as well through the windshield. When we got here this morning, both the driver and passenger side doors of this vehicle were wide open, suggesting that people inside were there when gunshots rang out, that they essentially fought for their lives to get to safety. We know, according to Toronto Police, that 2 people were injured in this shooting. One person was shot. This person taken to hospital in critical condition, underwent surgery first thing this morning. According to police, still fighting for their life in hospital. A second person suffering minor injuries, very likely a bullet graze, was checked out here at the scene and did not have to go to hospital. But certainly police are now trying to piece together exactly what happened. Forensic investigators laying down 16 evidence markers, and they weren't in the same area as these 2 vehicles, plus a third vehicle that was towed by police, a white or silver minivan that was taken out with the windows blown out as well. These 16 evidence markers actually on the west side of the plaza, suggesting that there was either a shootout or someone or multiple people were running as shots were being fired. As for what people are telling CP24 this morning as they're coming out from the townhouse complex just across the street from this plaza, they're feeling shaken, they're feeling unnerved, and they're trying to really understand what actually happened. Here's what they tell us about what they saw, what they heard, and what they're thinking this morning.
We were sleeping, and then we had bangs like, I thought it was fireworks, right? Because I've lived here and I've never heard anything like that. So it was quite surprising. And the next thing, I think I heard like police sirens, right? I think it happened just before 12 midnight, right? And that was just what it was.
Yeah. Was it 1 shot, 2 shots?
No, it wasn't. It must have been like 12. I might be exaggerating, but it wasn't 1, it wasn't 2, it wasn't 5, it wasn't 6. And that's why I assumed it must have been like fireworks or something like that.
It's really scary for me. Like, this is like a really quiet neighborhood, and we just heard something like that. Like, we never thought that's gonna happen. It's something like that's gonna happen in here.
Police have not said at this point how many people they're looking for, how many suspects are still outstanding. They haven't put out any descriptions at all. In this plaza, there are lots of security cameras. Police will obviously be turning to those security cameras to try to get a description or a picture of the suspect or suspects. But of course, if you have any information that could help police, give them a call. Back to you.
A 5-year-old boy from the Montreal area that was the subject of an Amber Alert this morning has been found safe in Ontario. According to Quebec police, 2 people were arrested in York Region.
Misconduct charges have been dropped against 2 Toronto police officers involved in the search for Tess Ritchie back in November of 2017.
The 22-year-old's remains were eventually discovered by her mother and a friend. CTV's Beth McDonnell has the story.
Strangled in a stairwell in 2017, Tess Ritchie's body was not found by police, but her mother, 4 days after her disappearance. Now, nearly 7 years later, a Toronto police tribunal has dropped the misconduct charges against Constable Alan McCullough and Michael Jones, both sent to look for the 22-year-old when she went missing.
There are a lot of mixed emotions given what happened today. I can tell you that. You know, at the outset, nothing can make up for the loss that the Ritchie family suffered.
Tribunal documents say 3 days before Ritchie's remains were discovered, the constables responded to a call for a missing person just 40 meters from the stairwell. The allegation, they failed to thoroughly search for Ritchie. But at the hearing downtown, prosecutors said the case had been resolved with a restorative approach, and there has been no finding of professional misconduct. The constable's lawyers said they would participate in further training on missing persons cases and forfeit 40 hours of pay. In a statement to CTV, police say the service consulted with the Ritchie family throughout the process. The subject officers have taken full responsibility for their actions and are committed to contributing positively to the service's ongoing development, it read. As part of their accountability, the officers will engage directly with recruits, sharing their experience and the critical lessons learned from this case to better prepare future officers and strengthen the organization as a whole. Before being killed, Ritchie was out in the Church and Wellesley area when she met 21-year-old Kalen Schlater outside a bar. He was found guilty of first-degree murder and is serving a life sentence. Smitchuk says the search for justice is not over and there is an unresolved civil suit against police and several other parties.
There's a lot of fight in this Ritchie family. This was a family that deeply cared for Tess, and I think that they want more answers. They want more accountability, and again, they want to create awareness. So all the things that went wrong in this particular circumstance, that it doesn't happen again.
At the tribunal, one of the constable's lawyers said it happened due to systemic failures in the way missing person cases used to be handled, and police have made enormous improvements to ensure what happened in Ritchie's case doesn't happen again.
Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
We've got more news in a moment, but first, a look outside at the weather. It is cloudy, but it's going to clear. Muggy, though, hot and humid. If you're going to be outside, try to stay cool and keep hydrated. There's also concern about active weather north of the city. Environment Canada has issued watches and warnings. Now, we're looking at our satellite radar. There's rain to the south of us and also to the north of us, but that warning and watches that we're talking about, that's far north. So heavy rain and also thunderstorm watches and also thunderstorm warnings. And then you've also got a heat warning to the south in London and Windsor. So in our area, we're okay, but we're keeping an eye on those things. Right now, it is hot, 28 in Peterborough, 27 in Hamilton, 29 in Niagara Falls. And at the islands, 25 at the airport right now, 27 degrees. And this afternoon, going up to 31, there's a chance of some showers rolling in. But look at the humidex. It feels like 39 degrees. So really hot and humid. We'll give you a look at the long-range forecast a little bit later on in the show.
A 16-year-old and her mother thought they had lost out on seeing Taylor Swift's Eras tour, but it turns out it's not a cruel summer for the teen after all.
The pair was given the ultimate surprise this morning from the concert's official ticketing partner. CTV's Raheem Ladani is live with more on the great reveal. Raheem.
Nathan and Michelle, good afternoon. This truly was a once-in-an-era surprise for a massive Taylor Swift fan. But to get the full picture, I need to give you some backstory first. This all started last August when Taylor Swift announced her Canadian tour dates in Toronto. That's when 16-year-old Maya asked her mother for tickets. Now, like many people, she was waitlisted and turned to someone on social media who claimed they were selling tickets. Unfortunately, Maya's mother was scammed out of $1,600 and still had no tickets. Well, our digital team at CTV News covered this story last August, and RBC, who's the official ticketing partner of the Swift's Eras tour, came across it and wanted to help. And so this morning, with the help of Maya's mom, we set up secret cameras to capture them arriving at this bank branch in Vaughan. Shortly after telling her she was just entering a contest for Taylor Swift tickets, we revealed she was actually being gifted 2 concert tickets. Watch this. With the help of your mom, RBC, and Avion Rewards, Maya, you're going to the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto.
Like, actually? Like, for real, for real?
Yes.
Like, for real, for real, for real? It's still crazy to me that she, like, even after that, she still kind of went for it. And that's how much I love her. Because she loved me and did that for me. So I love her just as much, even more.
We've put last year behind us. We've really forgotten about it. And when I was reached out by email, I was like, do I respond? Do I not respond? Is this another scam? My husband's like, leave it. Don't respond. I'm like, no, I have to if there's a chance. And it was from then on, it was like the best feeling ever. Like I was waiting for this day for so long.
Now, there's still one question left to be answered. Who is Maya going to take to the concert? She says she doesn't know right now. Is it going to be her mother or one of her friends? But she's got some time to figure that out. As for RBC, they say they've actually already given away thousands of tickets to the concerts across Toronto and Vancouver, and they're going to continue to do these memorable surprises in the weeks leading up and the months leading up to the Taylor Swift concerts. Reporting live, I'm Raheem Ladani. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
How fabulous is that? Thank you, Raheem. Still ahead on CTV News, 1 million Canadians across the country are now being warned their personal information may have been compromised following the Park and Fly data breach. We'll have the details a little later in the newscast.
The TTC is promising to increase and improve its service starting next month.
It comes as traffic congestion continues to be a major issue heading into the back to work and the back to school season. CTV's Natalie Johnson is live in Scarborough to bring us those details. Natalie.
Well, Michelle, as you say, it is back to school, back to work, and the mayor is also hoping it is back to the TTC. These new service improvements are all part of a strategy to help rebuild ridership across the system.
At this Scarborough bus stop, many of the people who depend on the TTC say they often find themselves waiting too long for their ride.
A lot of the time you'll be waiting like 20 minutes sometimes, and it gets really frustrating.
There's a lot of service needs out here. There's people waiting 30 minutes at a time for a bus.
I wait a long time, especially like in the the evenings and stuff like that, and in winter. It's a little stressful.
But starting in September, the TTC is vowing to speed up service across the system by increasing frequency and improving reliability.
This fall, TTC buses will be operating more service hours than prior to the pandemic.
It is all part of a pledge to rebuild Toronto's transit system and get more people to take the TTC.
Congestion in Toronto is a real problem. And I'm appealing to those that are considering, if you have a choice, to take public transit. I want you to choose TTC, the better way. And as some of you have done before the pandemic, we want you back.
Beginning September 1st, 16 bus routes will feature shorter wait times or more room on board. 23 bus routes will offer improved reliability, according to the TTC. On the subway, Line 1 trains will arrive every 2 to 3 minutes during the weekday morning and afternoon rush hours, and every 4 to 5 minutes in the early afternoons and evenings between 7 and 10 p.m.
I'm incredibly proud of the progress that we've made in rebuilding from the challenges that were posed by the pandemic, and I'm confident that ongoing service improvements and our strategic long-term plans will further elevate public transit here in Toronto.
As the TTC tries to convince Torontonians that it is still the better way. As for the price tag on these new service changes, well, the funding was already allowed for in this year's TTC budget. The cost is about $10 million a year. Reporting live in Scarborough, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Well, getting stuck on long commutes is a common theme for Canadians these days.
Here's CTV's Colton Prale on traffic troubles now back to pre-pandemic levels.
Gone are the days of empty streets and open highways throughout the pandemic. The traffic is back, and it's as bad as ever. After dropping during the rush to remote work, commute times across Canada have returned to their pre-pandemic norms, an extra 2.5 minutes of driving on average. The change driven by more drivers heading into the office. Now, more than 1 million hybrid employees make at least one trip into work a week, and commuters say they're noticing the difference.
It always seems like it's packed, and it's the same like in the morning, and then evening when you go back, it's the same.
I have to wake up at around 5 a.m. to get to work, and I have to get to work at 8. So that's an insane commute.
In Toronto and the Golden Horseshoe, commutes are the longest in the country, with Vancouver and Montreal not far behind. The longest on average take at least 30 minutes. But take public transit and it's an extra 15 minutes each way. Experts say it's why, even as workers return in force, transit numbers are lagging behind their pre-pandemic norms, with just 1 in 10 commuters opting for the train or the bus.
We really, in some ways, have a little bit of a branding issue that we have to overcome here. We need to ensure that transit is a great option and the best option in Canadian cities. And, you know, it hasn't been coming out of the pandemic.
One stat to watch, the number of commuters taking at least an hour to and from work each day. It's jumped 3 years in a row, in large part thanks to long drives in the Golden Horseshoe. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
Toronto Public Health says the number of whooping cough cases are more than double the pre-pandemic average. There have been 99 cases so far this year, compared to the pre-pandemic 5-year average of 38. Whooping cough is a highly contagious, persistent cough that's of most concern for infants. The city's public health agency says 41% of cases are found in 10 to 14-year-olds. The disease occasionally increases every 2 to 6 years in Ontario. An outbreak was reported across New Brunswick last week, with 141 cases so far this year.
The major data breach at the airport service Park and Fly has 1 million Canadians across the country now being warned their personal information may have been compromised. Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst live from the CTV National Newsroom. Scott, what kind of personal information was accessed by this hack?
Michelle, this personal information include names, mailing addresses, emails, as well as CAA and Aeroplan numbers. Now, Park and Fly bills itself as Canada's largest off-airport parking provider, so you can bet that a lot of Canadians, particularly coming off the busy summer travel season, are potentially worried about what may be in the hands of would-be scammers. And so here's what we know about the hack. And this is a significant data breach. As you mentioned, more than 1 million customers have been affected, being warned their personal information may have fallen into the wrong hands. They've been compromised from this data breach. Park and Fly says hackers accessed these details between July 11th and July 13th. It says a third party accessed the company's network through unauthorized remote VPN access. And so we were speaking with a cybersecurity expert who pointed out that time is of the essence when it comes to incidents like this, and that is why customers are being notified. Here's more from that cybersecurity expert, Michelle.
Most important thing for victims is to find out as soon as possible so they can take steps. In the case of this particular breach, it took 3 weeks for victim to start being notified, and unfortunately that's a long time because very valuable assets were lost. In this case, it was the Aeroplan numbers.
Michelle, in response to a request from CTV News, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner says it has now received a breach report from Park and Fly.
Scott, what is Park and Fly doing about all this?
At this time, they say they are warning customers directly through email who may have been affected. It says it is notifying customers now after what it calls a thorough investigation with its own IT services and a third-party cybersecurity expert. The company says its platforms were fully restored within 5 days of the incident and is quick to point out payment information such as credit cards were not compromised in this data breach. Park and Fly says it has also increased its security surveillance, including updating its network antivirus software, Michelle.
CTV's Scott Hurst live for us today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Michelle.
Ukraine has endured a second consecutive night of air and missile attacks from Russia. 5 people were killed and 16 injured in the attacks, according to reports. Ukraine's president says the enemy used 81 drones as well as cruise and ballistic missiles. Volodymyr Zelensky also vowed to respond to the latest strikes as well as others. Yesterday, a barrage of about 200 Russian missiles and drones were fired at locations across the country. Elsewhere, the chief of Ukraine's army said the country's troops have gained control of nearly 1,300 square kilometers of Russia's Kursk region since their surprise incursion 3 weeks ago.
In the Middle East, the Israeli military says it has rescued a hostage abducted during the October 7th Hamas-led attack on Israel. Officials say Kid Farhan al-Qadi was freed from an underground tunnel in southern Gaza following a complex operation. He was working as a guard at a packing factory in a kibbutz when the attack happened. Al-Qadi was one of 8 members of Israel's Arab Bedouin minority who were kidnapped. Dozens of hostages are still in captivity as international mediators try to broker a ceasefire in which they would be released.
Beijing responded less than 24 hours after the Canadian government announced a 100% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles. The Chinese government accused Canada of protectionism and says the tariffs would disrupt the stability of global supply chains and affect economic and trade relations between the two countries. Beijing insists it will take any necessary measures to defend the rights and interests of Chinese companies. Ottawa is also slapping a 25% tariff on Chinese steel and aluminum. The announcement was made at the Liberal Cabinet retreat in Halifax. This is the final day, which is focusing on Canada-U.S. relations.
Barriers to trade exist not only within our own country, but of course cross-border. And I've been working under the aegis of the Regulatory Cooperation Council, that's a federal body under the Treasury Board Secretariat, to reduce cross-border areas of irritants in the trade relationship. I've already been to Washington once in June, where my counterpart, Shalanda Young, and I agreed to work together over the summer. I will be traveling to D.C. next week to conclude this round of negotiations under the Regulatory Cooperation Council. We will be isolating 3 priority areas for cross-border work to reduce barriers to trade for Canadian and U.S. businesses, and I will update you once we've had that meeting on what those 3 priority areas are.
Anita Anand says $3.3 billion of trade in goods and services passes across the Canada-U.S. border every year. Well, back on that forecast, hot, humid, and muggy. We could get clipped by showers this afternoon. And if you've got plans, maybe you've got a game tonight, baseball or soccer, good chance it's going to be canceled because of all the showers that are going to be coming in at around 7 and continuing throughout the night. We'll give you a look at the long-range forecast right after the break.
Gorgeous start to the day, bright sunshine, which was really nice, but you could feel the heat even in the early morning hours. And now things are taking a bit of a turn, too.
Yeah, and it's one of those weird kind of looking days. It's hot, it's also hazy, muggy, humid, and we've also got rain coming. It's going to kind of come in waves. But we can show you the conditions right now in terms of the temperatures. 27 in Toronto, 33, make that 23 in Kingston, 28 in Wyerton, but it feels like 36 already in the city. The high for today, 31, but it's going to feel like 39. And if you look at what it's going to feel like, those temperatures in yellow, we're talking in the 30s pretty much everywhere. So it's just one of those hot days. Try to stay indoors if you can, stay cool, stay hydrated. The lows above seasonal as well, 21 in Toronto, 18 in Peterborough, 20 in Waterloo. But the story is north of us, they've got watches and warnings, heavy rain. For us, it's just going to be smaller amounts in the afternoon possible, and then perhaps even more later tonight. And if you are heading, let's say, to the CNE, I'd say now would be the time to go, because by this evening, you can pretty much expect showers beginning at around 7, if not 8 o'clock. So bear that in mind. Pack the umbrella. You could get caught in the rain. Looking at the long-range forecast for today, showers expected in the afternoon, and then again in the evening, the high 31, but feeling like 39. And that humidity is going to stick around a little bit for tomorrow with showers early in the morning. Then it does clear, the high 25. Thursday, this is more of a seasonal day. It should be 24. That's normal this time of year. So Thursday will be like a normal day this time of year. And then more showers rolling in for Friday. Temperatures going back up. Now, as for the long weekend, pretty good on Saturday. Lots of sunshine, the high 27. I'd say pretty comfortable. Sunday, there's a chance of some showers, but not a huge chance. That's the first of the month. And then holiday Monday, Labor Day, things cool down a little bit. The high just 22. But overall, a little bit of rain, but the week's looking pretty good. Well, sunflowers are blooming across the province.
At a family farm northwest of London, the bright fields are more than just beautiful. They have a special purpose. They're part of a campaign to raise money for a children's cancer center in memory of a 2-year-old boy. CTV's Sean Irvine reports.
Sunflowers bask in the morning rays on Jericho Road, just west of Thetford. Now coming into bloom, these yellow-seeded delights of nature will serve an important purpose. They are growing on the family farm of the late Max Rombouts. Since his death at the tender age of 2 from leukemia, a community effort has raised funds to support families with childhood cancer. Today, there are 3 Max Minion sunflower fields spread across Lambton County. Inside her own patch, Max's mother, Jamie, is overwhelmed.
I would have never foreseen what it has bloomed into today.
The power of Max's Flowers to fundraise has grown substantially over the past 5 years. It now exceeds $450,000.
A good portion of our funds go to Child Can, and it funds their parking at the hospitals, which are called Max Passes. So when a new family has been diagnosed with childhood cancer, a worker from Child Can goes in and sees the family and gives them a package to help them through their journey.
A journey the Rombouts family sadly knows all too well. And while no sunflower can bring Max back, his big brother Zach believes this magic stalk can bring him closer.
Just because every day I can go out to the road, like going to the bus and look at them or go through them whenever I want.
And think about your brother.
Yep.
To be able to welcome people to our house and let them enjoy the sunflowers as much as we do. And for us to look out our yard and see the sunflowers this year and remind us of our little boy.
Donations are accepted at all sunflower fields and online. In Lambton County, Sean Irvine, CTV News.
SpaceX has postponed its groundbreaking mission hours before it was scheduled to take off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The mission, known as Polaris Dawn, had been scheduled to take off today when a helium leak was detected, delaying the launch until tomorrow at the earliest. The mission will include the first spacewalk carried out by a civilian crew. This is the first of 3 planned space flights that American entrepreneur and pilot Jared Isaacman is funding and organizing with SpaceX.
Aerospace startup Boom Supersonic has completed its second test flight of a high-tech commercial jet that flies faster than the speed of sound.
An afternoon meeting in London and be home that same day in time to tuck your kids into bed. That's the kind of thing that Overture makes available.
Boom says the Overture, which is still in development, will be able to fly approximately 65 passengers from New York to London in 3.5 hours, Newark to Frankfurt in 4 hours, and San Francisco to Tokyo in 6 hours. Overture will use the world's first automated noise reduction system, flying without afterburners to reduce noise for both passengers and airport communities.
Coming up, getting the band back together after 15 years. The Gallagher brothers put aside their family feud to reunite Oasis. More on that after the break.
It is a reunion many fans thought they might never see.
After 15 years, British rock group Oasis is returning for a UK tour next year. CTV's Andrea Case has got more on this. This is big news.
This is huge news. Good afternoon, Michelle and Nathan. Now, make that 14 years and 364 days, but who's counting? Perhaps for today's generation, they're asking who, but for another generation, they're about to max out their credit cards and buy a plane ticket to the UK.
This is it. This is happening.
One of entertainment's most contentious cases of sibling rivalry has apparently come to a detente. Liam and Noel Gallagher, the founders of the British band Oasis, are reuniting after a 15-year split. They not only are talking, they're going out on tour. 14 dates have been announced for next summer. But they aren't going far. They will play 4 shows in London and 4 in their hometown of Manchester, with additional gigs in Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. The brothers publicly broke up after some very public outbursts, which included Liam hitting Noel over the head with a tambourine during a show, and Noel cracked Liam over the head with a cricket bat, then smashed the studio they were in to pieces. In between, lots of trash talking back and forth. No word as to how they got back together. Skeptics say the amount of money offered was too much to turn down. No dates outside the UK have been set. For now, Oasis commented in a press release, the guns have fallen silent, the stars have aligned, the great wait is over. Come see. It will not be televised.
This is happening.
Yeah, it's happening. Okay, everybody fights with their siblings. I remember fighting over my brother with a sweater, but we still talk. Again, for those who don't know Oasis, it was not just a band. Rolling Stone called, and this is how I describe them, rock, Britpop, psychedelic punk band, a cultural force. Now, plans are underway for Oasis Live 25 to go to other continents outside of Europe later in the year. But first, let's see if they can survive the first 14 dates. Good luck, Gallagher brothers. Tickets go on sale Sunday in the UK. For CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Michelle, back to you.
Ooh, I like that. Meantime, brothers Jason and Travis Kelce have scored a massive deal with Amazon for their podcast.
We got to talk about it. Jason, why don't we tell everybody what we just got done doing?
Amazon's Wondery will pay a reported $100 million to produce the brothers' New Heights. The podcast exploded in popularity after Travis began dating Taylor Swift. It boasts an insider's look at the NFL, with the new season set to begin just before the football season launches. And Canadian rockers Arkells are hoping to get their hands on some video footage captured during a concert Friday night. They took the stage at the Burt Block party and got up close and personal with an unauthorized drone.
Throughout the show, I sort of developed a relationship with the drone, and I'd signal it to come closer, and then I'd sort of push it away, and it would act accordingly. I was having a great time.
Arkells lead singer Max Kerman took to TikTok asking Winnipeg police to release the footage captured by the illegally operated device. But police tell CTV News the band's plea is a shot in the dark. Officers were able to locate and speak to the drone operator, who police say was cooperative. They didn't arrest the person or confiscate the drone, so who knows, could be some time before that footage comes to light, if it even does.
Well, in health-related news, researchers from the University of Saskatchewan have identified a cell protein responsible for iron regulation, and it could be used to treat aggressive cancers. CTV's John Flatters has the story.
A team of researchers from the University of Saskatchewan, the University of Wisconsin, and Oregon Health and Sciences University have made a significant breakthrough that could improve cancer treatments in the future. Oleg Dmitriev says his lab focuses on the regulation of copper and iron inside the cell. While iron helps blood carry oxygen through the body, among other roles, cancer cells rely on iron for rapid growth.
So the question then becomes, can you try to disrupt iron metabolism, so iron distribution and flow in the cell, to unleash this destructive power of iron atoms to selectively kill cancer cells?
The team found one specific marker called MEMO1 binds iron and regulates the flow in and out of the cell. It also appears at high levels in lung and prostate cancers, but highest in triple-negative breast cancer cells. Using the Canadian light source, the team was able to map the protein at an atomic level.
To get a molecular snapshot that shows you exactly what that protein looks at an atomic level and where exactly iron or copper bind to that protein.
The Canadian Cancer Society says 2 in 5 Canadians will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. 1 of 4 will die of it. While current treatments can be effective, they are highly toxic and leave the patient with negative side effects. Dmitriev hopes that by targeting Memo 1, new treatments can be created that have less harmful reactions.
We can then use those anti-cancer drugs at much lower doses, so that they would still kill cancer cells, but they would not affect healthy cells that much.
The article was published in the online medical journal eLife in May. Continued research will evaluate the role of copper in the Memo 1 protein. John Flatters, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Still to come, Bank of Montreal shares fell in morning trading, disappointing investors. We'll have those details in the rest of your business headlines after this short break.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Bank of Montreal's latest results disappointed investors, but Scotiabank topped expectations.
Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg has the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Bank of Montreal shares fell about 6% in morning trading as the lender once again put aside more money than analysts had expected for potentially dud loans. That dragged down results from the bank's U.S. operations. Provisions for credit losses topped $900 million. BMO shares are up only about 1% in the past year, while TSX banking stocks as a group have risen 15%. Meanwhile, shares in Bank of Nova Scotia were up about 2%. Profit topped analyst estimates on higher revenue from Canadian retail banking and international units, even as Scotia continues to set aside more money for possibly bad loans. The results come after 2 years of declines or only slightly positive growth in the bank's vital Canadian division. The shares are up about 8% in the past year. And finally, Bloomberg says the Japanese-based parent of 7-Eleven is adopting a maneuver that could make it harder for Canada's Alimentation Couche-Tard to take over the company. 7&I Holdings is seeking designation as a core company, sources said. Japan's Ministry of Finance would have to vet any entity seeking to acquire more than 10%. The law was designed to protect Japan from security risks, such as outflow of military technology. 7&I says its convenience stores play a critical role in supplying food and other items in the event of natural disasters. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of B&M Bloomberg.
Air Canada is preparing for a possible strike by its pilots next month. The airline is offering some increased flexibility for passengers booked on flights around the date of the potential job action. Under Air Canada's policy, customers with tickets for travel between September 15th and the 23rd can rebook on another flight with the same origin and destination, up to November 30th at no additional cost. Anyone who wants to cancel or rebook for after that date will have their change fees waived, but will have to pay any fare difference. Travelers with bookings during the affected period may also cancel their flight and receive a credit for future travel. A strike date has not been set, but the pilots have voted overwhelmingly to approve a strike mandate if a new deal cannot be reached.
A new report shows a higher number of younger Canadians missed credit payments in the second quarter of this year. Equifax Canada says 1 in every 17 people aged 26 to 35 missed a payment. That is compared with 1 in 23 overall. The Nationwide Credit Bureau says it was due to living costs and unemployment. Delinquency rates for auto loans and lines of credit were also particularly high among younger Canadians. Equifax says that is a sign of financial pressures faced by that demographic. The average income for younger consumers tends to be lower, with many new to the job market or working part-time hours. About 6 million people play the lottery here in Ontario, and if your numbers come up, you would think it's fairly easy to collect your prize.
But you may have to answer a series of questions before receiving your jackpot, including exactly where you purchased your ticket. CTV's Pat Foran has more on this consumer alert.
I can go anywhere with my volunteer work.
Heather Douglas does a lot of driving as a volunteer and says no matter what city or town she's in, when she gets gas, she often buys lottery tickets. Last August, she bought one for a 649 draw, but didn't check it until March. She won $1,003.
I felt great. I thought, those commercials are right. Even though it was only $1,000, I can buy something that I want.
With her busy schedule, Douglas says she only contacted OLG to collect her prize this summer, but she was told she couldn't have her jackpot unless she could tell them the store and intersection where she bought the ticket, something she can't remember.
There's no signs anywhere indicating that you must prove where you bought the ticket. Nowhere. I had no idea that they could do that, and it outraged me.
In June, we did a similar story where the winner denied their lottery prize of almost $1,200 because he also couldn't recall where he bought his ticket.
OLG is asking him what location you bought it when it's months ago.
Douglas says she's frustrated and wants her jackpot.
I would like my money, but not only that, I don't think anybody else should have to go through this.
A spokesperson for OLG told CTV News, when a winning ticket of $1,000 or more is presented for claim, the OLG Prize Center is required to determine the rightful ownership of that ticket. When claiming a prize, you may be asked, where did you purchase the ticket? When did you purchase the ticket? And did you purchase other lottery products such as Encore or another game at the same time? OLG recently reviewed Douglas's case, and she was relieved to finally get her winnings of $1,003.
Thank you, CTV. I was able to get my check, and I thank you for all of the hard work that you helped me to get it. Thank you, CTV.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Learning your bank account has been compromised is a terrifying ordeal, especially when you've been duped thinking it's true.
As part of a new scam involving e-transfers, here's CTV's Allison Bamford on what happens and how to avoid it.
A new twist on a scam that's duped people for years. This version of the so-called bank investigator scam starts with a phone call.
Hello.
From fraudsters impersonating financial institutions, claiming the victim's bank account was compromised.
They try to instill a false sense of urgency to try to make you take an action without thinking it through.
Scammers convince the victim to send an Interac e-transfer to their personal cell number to protect their funds. The suspect provides the security question and answer for the e-transfer, then asks the victim to send them a code, which is the last few digits of the e-transfer URL.
By providing that code, criminals are able to, retrieve that e-transfer because they have the question and password for the e-transfer along with the full URL, and they deposit the funds into the fraudulent bank account.
Technology and AI making these scams more sophisticated. And unlike the grandparent scam that targets seniors, people of all ages are falling victim to this one.
This is a scam for everybody because everybody now is using online banking.
If you receive a suspicious call, tech experts say it's best to hang up and call the number on the back of your bank card, but wait 10 minutes or use a different phone to make sure the scammer isn't on the other line.
The telephone system has changed. When I was a child, when you hung up on the phone call, you hung up on the phone call. Now, because of voice over IP, there might well be a delay.
There are other ways to clue into scams. Banks won't ask people to transfer funds to an external account, and experts recommend never giving out your links or codes sent from texts or emails to anyone. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
In sports, the Blue Jays will look to build on their longest win streak of the season tonight.
This is a well-hit ball towards the right field corner, and it's gone!
Toronto swept yesterday's doubleheader against Boston, bringing their streak to 6 games after a sweep of the Angels. George Springer knocked out his second home run of the day to fuel a 5-run 5th inning. The Jays won 7-3. Yariel Rodriguez is expected to start tonight. First pitch just after 7 p.m.
Canada's flag bearers for the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games have been announced. Swimmer Katarina Roxon and basketball player Patrick Anderson will carry the flag during tomorrow's ceremony in downtown Paris. Roxon from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, won gold at the 2016 Paralympic Games in Rio. Anderson from Fergus, Ontario, is considered one of the best wheelchair basketball players of all time. He led Canada to 3 gold medals and a silver in previous appearances. 126 Canadian athletes will compete in 18 sports at this year's games. All right, let's take one last look at the forecast. It is hot, it is humid, and in terms of satellite, what's happening, there's a bit of rain that could hit us in the afternoon, and then there's another system that'll be hitting us later tonight. Right now, it's hot, 27 in Toronto, 27 in Oshawa, 27 in Barrie, but it feels like 36 here, so bear that in mind. It feels like 39 in Niagara Falls. Looking at the long-range forecast, showers expected a little bit in the afternoon, but more in the evening, starting at around 7 o'clock. It's going to feel like 39 later today. The showers will continue early tomorrow, then it'll clear. The high 25 is going to feel like 30. And then the humidity is going to leave Thursday, more of a normal day, seasonal, 24 degrees, a mixture of sun and clouds, and then some rain returns on Friday. As for the long weekend, it's going to be a pretty good day Saturday, hot, lots of sunshine, chance of showers on Sunday, the first of the month, and then holiday Monday, it's cooler, 22 degrees, but still lots of sunshine. So overall, things looking pretty good, just a little bit of rain. And that is it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For all of us here at CTV News, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.